Hello and welcome to Counterpressed on The Ringer and Spotify. I'm with Jessy Humphreys. On today's show, we reflect on some news from Jess Carter in the England camp. We talk about the last two quarterfinals and we look ahead to the semifinals at Euro 2025. Jessy, before we get started on talking about the football, we need to talk about a statement that was released today from England defender Jess Carter. She has announced that she is coming off social media after suffering racist abuse over the last few days in Switzerland. It's not the first time we've seen this in women's football. It's definitely not going to be the last. It's something we've seen across all of football for a very long time. And, you know, it's part of society and it's something that the game has been trying to deal with for a very long time now. But it's obviously something that unfortunately has now impacted this England camp. And when it comes to Carter especially, it's such a horrible and disgusting thing for her to have to go through during this major tournament.
Yeah, I think it feels like a very exhausting thing for the players of colour who exist in the England squad and within wider football, whereby you end up in this horrible situation where effectively, as soon as your performances come into question, you end up with this horrific abuse that goes alongside it. I think it's really important what Jess has said in her statement and sort of what has been said by the England camp as well in terms of drawing attention to it. And it feels like we end up going around in this very frustrating circle whereby attention is tried to be raised about these things, but it feels like no progress ends up being made because basically the nature of sort of social media feels like it ends up just exacerbating this stuff anyway. So I can't imagine what it's like to be having to try and play in an international tournament and be going through that at the same time. But yeah, I think it's really brave and important of Jess to have spoken out about it. Yeah, as you say, it's obviously not the first time we've seen this happen with England players on international tournaments. And I think first and foremost, I just hope she is doing as well as she can be doing in this situation, because it's obviously such an incredibly horrible thing to go through. And I think, you know, it seems positive that there's a lot of solidarity around what's happening for her in camp, but it's just so tough when it feels like we have these conversations again and again and no progress ends up getting made.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know Lotte Wubben-Moy's statement alluded to this, and Lucy Bronze mentioned it in the press conference that England had today, which is social media companies aren't really interested in doing anything about it. They simply do not care. And it's not a social media issue that causes it. It's a societal issue. So protecting players on social media is only one aspect of it, but we all know that social media companies aren't doing enough and players are suffering as a result. But as a game, football needs to do so much more. I'm not sure if many of our listeners would have seen what Salford City put out recently. One of their players suffered horrific abuse at a friendly against York City last week, and the club have done a lot around it, actually, kind of interviewing players and squad, and even Gary Neville, who's obviously an investor there, just to really highlight the impact it has on the victims who suffer this abuse. And it's a really dark and upsetting watch, but I think it's really important because we have gone through this cycle in football, especially in the digital space, where it's become so standard, so common, that I think people become desensitized to it, and that's extremely depressing and concerning. And I think because there's this digital world that we know these big tech companies just simply don't give a fuck, I think that makes it really frustrating when it just feels like a hopeless environment for so many of these players to exist in.
I think also what I would like to add as well is that I think sometimes we can look at sort of social media abuse or like the extreme end of some of this stuff and talk about that as its own thing. But I think even throughout this tournament, we've maybe seen different points where, and just in the women's football space in general, maybe over the past couple of months, where microaggressions and also things that like tip over into just actively being quite racist sort of like they get brushed over a little bit, and it feels like we're very good, in inverted commas, as maybe a broader media at focusing on these really extreme examples, but maybe less good at thinking about how does whiteness impact the way we talk about black players and players of colour throughout the way they play football. And I hope maybe this is also a time of reflection for people around that, and how maybe lots of people have a role to think about what it means to talk about players of colour in the game beyond just sort of condemning abuse on social media.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you mentioned earlier as well, big statement of support from the England squad, individual players. The Prime Minister as well has just released a statement. Mark Bullingham, Chief Exec of the FA, as well as lots of other Kick It Out. So lots of kind of statements and messages there. And of course, we'll kind of update and talk about it as the tournament continues. But we wanted to just talk about that at the top before we get into any of the football, because it's really important that we cover that. So let's now talk about what happened in the last two quarterfinals next. This episode is presented by Pepsi Max. Pepsi Max has always supported both women's and men's football. So to help make sure the next 50 years are as legendary as the last, they've made an inspiring film called Refresh the Game, featuring current stars like Lauren James and Leah Williamson, alongside legends like Pele. Refresh the Game celebrates the unapologetic challenger spirit and talent of women's football. Watch it now on Pepsi Max channels. Pepsi Max, proud sponsors of the UEFA Women's Euro this summer. So, Jessy, we're not at Zurich HQ today, as people probably would have guessed, because...
Well, I am.
You are in the...
I live in Zurich HQ.
You now live in Zurich permanently. You are in Zurich HQ. I'm not. I'm in Geneva, because I headed over early just to soak up the vibe and get a sense of what it's going to be like for England's semi-final on Tuesday. So
I hear they speak French there. What's it like?
Huge reveal.
You don't like it.
They
You
do
speak
speak
German.
French. So the only language I probably know, not even that well, because I'm talking like I speak it really well. I don't, but I did do a bit of German at school and at uni. So I was getting comfortable in Zurich and Basel, where German is the more common language. But I mean, Swiss people are insanely impressive with their language skills, because so many of them go to school and will learn English, French, German, and then one other probably as well. So they're putting us all to shame. But I was just getting comfortable with my German, and then it was so, honestly, it's so amazing how kind of, I guess, diverse this country is when you are on a train and suddenly you arrive and it's basically like you're in France, but you're in Switzerland. It's and everyone on all the ticket guys started speaking French as well. It was so strange. And I'd be interested to see what you think. I mean, you've been to Geneva before, but how...
My first holiday, famously.
I would be interested to know how French you think it is, as someone who does speak the language and has spent a decent amount of time in France as well.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I have enjoyed... I lived in Germany for a very brief amount of time. So I have enjoyed getting to whack out some German, but I much prefer speaking French. So I'm looking forward to coming down tomorrow to see you.
It's going to be fun, and of course it's Switzerland, so there's plenty of water to swim in, which is the main activity of Euro 2025. Let's talk about Basel last night. Wow, another completely breathless quarter-final at Euro 2025. We thought England-Sweden was chaotic. The Germans and the French had another thing planned for us. Jessy, that was one of the most incredible games of football I've ever witnessed last night in Basel.
Do you remember when at like 5 o'clock when we were sat having dinner and I was like, guys, I'm flagging so hard. I kind of wish I hadn't come to this game. I'd got the trade from Zurich and I was like, I don't know if I can do it. I mean, I'm here. I was obviously going to do it. I'm so glad.
Imagine if you hadn't have come to that and you missed it.
Imagine if I'd been at home. Imagine if I'd been at home watching it. I'd have been so crazy. Yeah, one of the most bonkers things I've ever sat through. I don't think anyone would have thought when Kathy Hendrick got sent off, 12, 13 minutes in? I don't think anyone would have said Germany are going to win this from here. Because it just felt so impossible the amount of time they were going to have to play with 10 players. Then even when they were sort of doing it, and, you know, in that first half, we were saying, like, the off-the-ball work was insane. Physically, you could see how much they were giving. But it was like, no subs were being made. I was just like, I don't know if they can sustain this physical level. But they did. They carried on going. They managed to get through extra time and then win a penalty shootout. I think between England, Sweden and France, Germany, like, those are two games where I'm like, I've never, ever seen anything quite like that.
Incredible. And we thought that England had dug deep in order to get over the line against Sweden, but you have not seen anything like the levels that Germany had to suffer to get to penalties against France. It was crazy. So obviously, I think it was over 100 minutes they played with 10 players after that sending off. France go 1-0 up because of the penalty. We also have to say a completely stupid thing to do. 2 games in a row where a Germany player just does the most stupid thing you could do and ends
This
up...
one is more stupid, though. This one is
more stupid.
Because the Carlotta Bamsa one, I'm like, it's kind of crazy, but in that moment, I'm like, I don't know if she's trying to protect her face or if she's just like, this is my last ditch attempt to, like, stop us being, like, going behind. But I'm like, it feels like a very instinctive moment. The Hendrick thing on Mbok, I'm just like, one, I just think it's vile. Like, I just think it's like quite a grim thing to do. And 2, I'm like, then it's really stupid. And you're meant to be the experienced one.
Yeah, I agree. I think I completely agree. And it's so stupid. And you can't even argue with the decision as well. And then you put your teammates in a position in a knockout game where they've got to play with 10 players. Somehow, though, after France go 1-0 up, even though they had 2 goals disallowed, so they were in some ways trying to build that lead, and on another night it could have been a little bit different. But it was one of those games where you watch, and I have seen games like this when teams go down to 10 minutes and they're actually really hard to play against. And they had to work really hard, obviously physically and mentally, to stay in their shape, keep in formation, etc., etc. Like the amount of energy they had to expire just getting to the ball, putting in challenges, putting in blocks. But they actually looked pretty organised for a team that was a man down. And I think that also makes it so much harder if you're the team with that player advantage. I do feel like after the first half, France's energy just also started to sap a little bit. And then there were the changes that Bonnet made. He kind of moved early and made a host of subs that he thought would then change the game. They don't, because there wasn't quite the space to work with. And then it really did start to feel like, oh, okay, are France just going to get iced out of this game because their forwards are really struggling to create now?
Well, I think there's a couple of things about it. I think, before the game, when we looked at the Germany lineup, we were a bit like, huh? Because, we saw, for example, Franzi Kett coming in for her first start. Obviously, we knew Germany were going to have to shuffle the pack given the absentees they had. But Kett's not a natural fullback. It might shock people who watched the game last night, but that's not normally where she plays. So we already had that. That seemed a bit surprising. Then we had a question mark over Schüller being dropped. Gio Hoffmann comes in, and it felt like sort of in the first 10 minutes, it was really clear that the way Germany wanted to play were they wanted to use Hoffmann as his physical presence. They were going to try and get her to run through the channels. I think they see Paulina Pero-Mannion as a goalkeeper who doesn't necessarily come off her line as actively as maybe other goalkeepers do. So they're like, we want to make the most of being able to play this long ball in behind for Hoffmann, and she's going to run onto it. The thing that's funny is, like, that was their tactical setup, but it was like the perfect tactical setup to keep when they went down to 10 players, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I feel like that's why it really, really worked for them, because it was almost like, not that they'd imagined they were going to be with 10 players, but they really didn't have to change that much from what I think they actually intended to do from the start anyway.
Yeah, and something that was really inspired about the Hoffmann move is her physicality, because essentially Germany just had a battering ram who was going to hold up the ball really well, was going to pin France's defenders, was going to win some fouls, was just going to kind of cause a lot of problems and shake things up. And that worked perfectly. And it's not that Schüller's not weak, but Hoffman is a giant. So that kind of having that focal point, I think, made a massive difference. And like you say, even when it was 10 against 11, it was kind of perfect because she wins the corner that ends up allowing them to get the equaliser. And she was basically on the pitch nearly right till the end somehow. I mean, all of them look so broken. And one of the things I also want to mention is Sushka Nusken, who misses that penalty and then still converts her penalty shootout. So we haven't actually mentioned it was 6-5 on penalties. If England was an advert for bad penalty shootouts in women's football, this was elite, like ice cold from so many German players, so many French players, especially the young French players. Obviously, Alice Lompath misses at the end, but there were some young players on that pitch who I kept worrying for, and they put it away so calm. But before we get on to AKB, Nusken misses that penalty that could have given Germany the lead. And you think, she's pretty young. She was hyped up, a lot of adrenaline. And the way that they reacted to that penalty miss, it just didn't faze them at all, Jessy.
Yeah, well, I think the first thing to say is I think this game is very different if Nusken doesn't get that equaliser. And she ends up being very, very clear at that near post, but it's a fantastic header, and we know how good she can be in the box. And yeah, I feel like that really gave Germany something to hold on to, and I think that was really important. I think obviously if they'd carried on being 1-0 down, given the penalty France had already scored, you naturally get more worn down. But they knew they were in the game, and when it was 1-1, they knew that if they held out, they would get the opportunity to play on penalties, as they did. The Nusken penalty I did worry at that moment. I mean, firstly, Eula Brand, wow. I think everyone knows how much of a Eula Brand stan I am. But I said to you during the game, I was like, I don't even know if she's been good. She's been like good and bad at different points. But as a performance, as a whole, I thought it was like extraordinary. The amount of ground she covered, the tracking back, because what France were doing were they were looking to play these long balls out to Diani. And it was so funny, like Baxter was like Diani's shadow. As soon as that ball was hit, Baxter just like goes along, like do 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 do. For anyone on video, you could see me go like this. Baxter was just like running along after her, and so Brand had to come back, and Brand was really struggling against Baxter. She conceded like 3 free kicks.
I was gonna say, because where we were in the press box, it was just free kick there, free kick there, free kick there, because that was the spot. I mean, France were just laying it on a plate, like right in the target area, but Germany did well to just disrupt them enough that there was the one amazing team goal, which was Cascarino's flick, which was offside, which was just amazing to watch. But apart from that, there weren't actually that many great moves from France.
Yeah, well, so I think obviously what they wanted to do, I think especially after Germany went down 2-10, they wanted to be able to isolate Kleinherner, who ended up playing sort of as that right-sided defender. But because Brand tracked back, even if albeit in a bit of a chaotic way, they really struggled to do that. And then you saw on the opposite side that Brand started to get the better of Basha going forward, and obviously that's how she wins the penalty that CEO then misses, which I did feel, I felt really horrible at that moment, and I felt sick when she took the penalty in the penalty shootout, but obviously that went way better. But yeah, I thought generally France were disappointing. I obviously really thought this might be the year, and I feel like I've been betrayed by a lover to a certain extent.
But lots of us did. Lots of us did. A lot of us thought this was going to be the year, and there were signs. I know there's already been classically French, pretty spicy comments in the post-match. Some about Germany, some about the mentality from Bonadé about his players. And I hate just saying that sort of mentality bottling energy, but this was so there for the taking for them. Germany were down to 10 players.
It's an incredible bottle. I thought Sweden's bottle was bad. This is like insane levels. And like their quarterfinal record is atrocious. And the reason I backed them this year was because I was like, firstly I was like, you got to speculate to accumulate, and sometimes you have to go for an out there prediction to feel really good if you get it right. and I have to deal with the fallout from that now. But I was also like, you know, at some point teams do change stuff. We've seen it with England men. I think we've seen it with Spain women. Like, sometimes teams get over the line. But maybe France women, they just absolutely cannot do it. And
well,
are we
also,
ready for Kenza Dali's tell-all?
Oh, the Kenza Dali tell-all, I will be there. But also new manager. They had new manager. He'd got rid of some of the old guard who he said were basically killing the vibe. And I think that also created this energy of the vibes seem good. The collective vibes seem really good. But inevitably...
They ran through the group stage like it was nothing.
Just crazy. It's absolutely crazy. We've got to talk about Ann-Katrin Berger's incredible performance last night. I don't think I've seen anything like it, not just because of the saves she made and the save where she's having to react to the ball coming off. I can't remember, was it Gnak's head? And she's diving back.
No, it's Minga.
Minga's head, and she's diving back and gets the ball. But the way she hit her penalty, especially after what we saw with Sweden with Falk hitting it over the bar, she goes top corner. I mean, any striker would be pleased with that pen. She was just on another level last night. And Jessy, you turned to me maybe half an hour into the game and you said, tonight's going to be either an AKB classic that goes down in history, or it's going to be a disaster, but I can't quite figure out which one. And lo and behold, it was an all-time classic.
Yeah, I've watched this woman play football so much, and I've watched some highs and lows from AKB. She has two wolves inside her, for sure. And you never know what's going to come out. But I said it after the Sweden game, right? Where she was chaotic, and we did the pod, and you were a bit like, oh, you know, what we're thinking, like, is this a worry? And I'm like, the thing is about her is she can put in, like, an atrocious performance, and you're like, this goalkeeper is washed, like, it's over, and then she'll just come out with something like that. She was immense. I think with the crowd, she was immense. Yeah, the save for what would have been the own goal is maybe the best save I've ever seen live. I just do not know how she got there, and to be honest, as soon as it went to penalties, I just felt so confident in her because she is the best goalkeeper in the world when it comes to saving penalties. Like, I saw her do it so many times at Chelsea. We've seen her do it for Germany. And, you know, it was said when they won bronze at the Olympics because she was the hero then as well. But to have gone through what she went through with cancer, and also to have gone through what she went through in terms of how long she had to wait to get her chance, not just with Germany, but like at club level as well. She waited a long time to, you know, get her flowers at Chelsea when they came. I couldn't be more pleased for her because she's quality. And she's got so much personality as a keeper as well. That's what's so fun. You know, it is the two wolves inside her thing that I think makes it so enjoyable. And yeah, her penalty was just... But I had no doubt. That's what she's like. She's clutch. She's a clutch player.
And she loves a penalty shootout, like you say. She's done it so many times. It's her bread and butter. And it makes me terrified at the thought of if England were going to face Germany a penalty shootout. Let's talk about who Germany will be facing, though, in the semi-final before we preview those. Because Spain beat Switzerland 2-0. The hosts, unfortunately, out. They got a hero send-off at full-time, which was an amazing moment. And Leah Volti, I mean... she has been the poster girl for this tournament, and it was an emotional end for her, but a great game. I think you know, she went out on a high overall in terms of her individual performance, but it was a weird, surprising, poor performance from Spain, and I think frustrating for Switzerland watching it, because an opportunity for them where a rare night where things go wrong for Spain. They're unlucky. They missed those two penalties, which is really rare. They weren't playing very well. Switzerland contained them quite well, but Switzerland just offered nothing going forward. They weren't great when they got on the ball. Schurtenleib was expected to basically run 40 yards and get past four players, which was going to be, you know, a pretty horrible task. And that was the only sort of probably biggest moment of disappointment for the home fans, is that it's not like you play against Spain, you get smashed 5-0 and you think, oh, well, they're Spain. There was actually an opportunity there, but they just couldn't quite get their attacking setup right for when they did get on the ball?
Yeah, I mean, I think this game was always a free hit for Switzerland, and I think they can be delighted with how it ended up for them. I think my worry going in for it was like, oh, will it kill the vibe if they get absolutely smashed? And I find it quite hard to like talk about Spain in this game, because I think if Mariona scores that penalty, it's a very different match. But because she misses, we do end up with this something which is a little bit familiar with Spain, where they do end up getting a little bit frustrated as the game goes on. They struggle to create clear-cut chances, although I thought Olivia Peng had a good game in goal as well, which I think helped. But as I say, I think if Mariona scores that, it's a very, very different vibe, and that's like comes down to the penalty curse, basically. Alexia missing her penalty is different because she is just bad at penalties. But yeah, I agree with you. Switzerland had very, very little going forward. So I think even when we were sort of ticking towards 60 minutes or whatever it was, I still didn't really feel like Switzerland were ever going to be able to nick it. And then, I mean, that lovely little bit of skill from Aitana to set Afinia up. And that's the thing with Spain, is there's so many players on that pitch who can do that one thing, that even when, as a collective, you don't look great. And I think that is something, especially in international football, which is such an advantage to have. I think that's why I always feel like Spain are the team that you kind of have to back, because their talent advantage feels so high. And yeah, obviously from there, it never really felt like Switzerland were going to get back into it. Pina scores a fantastic goal because that's what Pina does. It's interesting, isn't it? I think I don't think Spain are infallible, but the way this tournament is like laying itself out for Spain is working quite well for them. They played in what wasn't a particularly hard group. They then got sort of the easiest of the quarterfinals, and their semi-final is now going to be against a team who played with 10 players for 107 minutes, and who probably do feel a little bit of a level below them anyway. So, yeah, I mean, I don't think Spain impressed much in this game, but they didn't need to. They won. I think they felt comfortable winning. I think the closest that I was like something dramatic is going to happen is like if Irene Paredes manages to get sent off, which Ana Maria Kornagucevic really argued for but didn't manage to make happen. So yeah, they won't have Laura Alexandri for the semi-final. I don't know. Does that matter?
Yeah, there's a couple of interesting narratives there, and we'll get into that shortly. But I do agree with you. I think when you start to see that tension and that frustration build, that's when, if you're playing Spain, you have to try and create something to take your chance, because the individual quality is so great that something is bound to click at some point. And the goal that they scored, the first goal, was brilliant. And then as soon as Volti sort of misses that challenge, Pina just has, 5 yards where she's just got all the time in the world to put that ball into exactly where she loves to put it, which is either top right, bottom right, and she does just that. So once that first goal goes in, you do feel like, oh, everything still starts to feel a little bit inevitable now. Let's take a break and we'll look ahead to those semi-finals next. This episode is presented by Pepsi Max. In the last 50 years, the beautiful game has had more than its share of iconic moments, and Pepsi has been at the centre of loads of them with their iconic films. Now, Pepsi Max are doubling down on their support of the women's game in a massive way. Not only are they sponsoring the Women's Euro in 2025, they're also refreshing the game with their star-studded new campaign. It follows today's stars, Lauren James, Leah Williamson, Alexia Putellas, Caroline Graham-Hansen and Farah Jeffrey on a journey through time as they refresh some of Pepsi's most iconic footballing moments, from Pele's debut in the 1970s to Ronaldinho's beachside brilliance. This isn't just nostalgia, it's a statement. With record viewership, women's football is the fastest growing sport on the planet, and Pepsi Max is right there cheering on that growth. Watch the legends meet now on Pepsi Max channels. Pepsi Max, proud sponsors of the UEFA Women's Euro this summer. Let's start with England-Italy, because that's going to be first. Tuesday in Geneva. England have ended up on what on paper was this slightly nicer side of the draw. they somehow make their way through that Sweden fixture in which England were the favourites, really. So the easy side of the draw kind of disappeared in an instant in that quarter-final. But what they have ended up with is a semi-final against Italy, a team ranked far lower than them in the rankings, a team that they've beaten heavily in the last few meetings that they've had. And England will really, even though they won't say this publicly, they're going to be going into this semi-final feeling pretty confident, especially given this is not a familiar position for this Italian side to be in.
Yeah, I mean, maybe it's not fair to say that they will feel confident. I think they go into it as heavy favourites, of course. I worry that Italy have Natasha Bedingfield on their side, and that could be a decisive factor.
The power of Natasha is pretty big.
Natasha feels strong, and I've not seen England girlies sing one song together. So,
what was the one? There was some changing room clips from after the Sweden penalty shootout, but it was just Freed from Desire for the 800,000th time.
No, sorry, I need something new, girls. Like I need you to give me something new. And the Italian girls have their suits as well. They look quite good. No, obviously England do go into this as heavy favourites. It's an incredible moment for Italy, and I think as semi-finals go, not a bad one to play. I think if you look at England against France and Sweden, you would feel like this is a team that can be got at and can get rattled. The flip side, I guess, is they have still managed to march their way through to a semi-final, albeit dramatically. But it'll be interesting to see, how that does affect England, sort of what they have gone through emotionally. I think they have the capabilities to shut all of that off. But equally, I don't feel confident, like totally confident in them because of the performances we've seen. Part of me wonders if that's a good thing. If you don't want to go into a game like this feeling like you're Billy Big Bollocks and you're just going to blow away the opposition, I think they will go in with an awareness that they've struggled in games throughout this tournament. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. One of my good friends is Italian. I've persuaded her to come. So I on a personal level, I'm really excited for it. I think it's really fun for them. And I'm really excited because I feel like women's football in Italy feels like every year it just gets a bit more exciting, gets a bit more fun, and we talk a lot about the impact of what having a good run at a tournament can do for you, and it feels like this could be a really, really great moment for Italian women's football. But yeah, it'll be interesting. It is hard to, I think, look past England in this match though.
Yeah, it's really exciting for the Italians, and I've loved watching them, and I think the togetherness that they've had has got them very far in this tournament, not just the Natasha Bedingfield moments and the team bus moments in their suits, but even just the way that they sing their national anthem. There is such a exciting cohesion there and a belief in each other, and I think that's great to see. And that can get you very far. I mean, that is part of how Germany pulled off that insane result in Basel was that belief and digging deep. And I think the key for England will be just don't concede early. I think in the two worst performances they've had, which was up until the 70th minute in the Sweden game and in that France game, they got stung really early and they looked unsettled, they looked nervous, they looked uncomfortable, and I think Italy will be looking to try and do that to them. So I think if England can have that calmness and composure in the first 25 minutes, half an hour, and get settled, I think that's something that they can build on. But that Italy will be looking there to try and make them uncomfortable. Jessy, when we were in our pre-match Basel food and drink sesh, we were debating the classic case of put yourself in Serena Wiegmann's shoes. Everything she's shown us about how she is a head coach is she's stubborn, she sticks to what she knows, and she won't make any changes. But there are some questions about this England team because they've been very optimistic and very confident in the way they've spoken about Leah Williamson's fitness, but she did come off the pitch against Sweden, so there's a question mark about whether she'll start. And Esme Morgan came on and did fairly well, so there's a question about, has she now earned a starting spot? So we were going back and forth about, she might do this, but then also she's done these funny things sometimes where she suddenly just makes a change and then she's obsessed with that change. So it's really hard to predict what we'll see from Serena. But I think we agree that maybe history tells us it'll be the same starting lineup if Williamson's fit, that we have seen throughout this tournament.
Yeah, my gut says she sticks with it. I don't know whether, given the way Morgan played against Sweden, whether that's something that becomes an earlier sub. I guess that's an option, and given that she's got minutes, it feels like something that's more in at Arsenal. The one that, we were talking about yesterday, which I don't think will happen, but I would kind of like to happen, is that LJ is obviously cooked. She has played so much football off the back of playing no football at all. She played 120 minutes against Sweden. The penalty, she's not a good penalty taker anyway, but it's such a tired penalty. And there is a part of me that, given that she's playing a right wing and we have Chloe Kelly and we have Beth Mead, that would really like to say, just sit LJ out for this one. Because if you make a final, then you've given her that extra bit of rest that maybe allows her to be at her best. I don't think she'll do it. I think LJ will start, but that's the one that for me where I'm just I know you have to play every game as if it is your last in a tournament, but I think sometimes you can think, well, we have quality options here, and it's not every position on the pitch that England could say that about, but right wing's probably the number one where you're you've got three genuinely really pretty good options. We've obviously saw what Kelly could do. I know she came on and played off the left. But yeah, that's the one for me that I'd just be I think, the long-term gain could be really, really big if they were to make a final. But I'm just making up. She's never going to do this.
No, and we know that Serena Wiegman doesn't rest players. Players can be on their knees in the Nations League or an international friendly, and Serena says you will absolutely be starting. But I do think it's going to be interesting to see if she does make any changes. And also, talking about James specifically, if England were to progress and Spain were to progress, James is absolutely someone you want to make sure is 100% for that game, and it still has energy and still has legs in her, because she's exactly the sort of player England are going to need in order to even come close to trying to beat Spain. And she was so important in how England won in the Nations League at Wembley, and she's going to be critical. So I'm with you. If I was making the decisions, then that's what I would be doing.
And what a situation that would be. Wow.
We always talk about this, but I sometimes think about how much, if I was a coach, would my players hate me, because I'd be making some insane decisions and just dropping everyone.
I really hope you become a manager someday. I'd love to see it.
And even last night at Basel, we were like, what? Vuk doesn't even know what he's doing. And then we're like,
oh my God, yeah. The Christian Vuk slander that was going on to my left was incredible.
And then Hoffman, genius. And to be fair, the sub thing was, you were rattled by the sub thing when he wasn't making any changes.
I was rattled, yeah. I mean, we've just jumped around, obviously, but there is a world where one of those France goals counts. And both of them were kind of tight in their own way. I think, obviously both correctly disallowed. But then you're saying, well, he looks like a fucking idiot, doesn't he? Because he's he's tried to play this physical game and left these players on forever and ever. I think he got away with one more than being a genius.
I agree. It's going to be interesting as well how the going to extra time impacts both England and Germany. England have had this before. Lots of players who are used to playing a lot of minutes going to deep into tournaments, but it's going to be tough for them to recover from that. Let's talk about the other semi-final then. Germany facing Spain, another blockbuster clash. This side of the draw has been so much fun. France-Germany felt like that could have been a final. Germany-Spain feels like it could be a final, but we're getting these in back-to-back knockout games. What Germany will be feeling good about is it's going to be a very big crowd that will be favouring them. It's going to be a noisy crowd that's going to try and create some hostility, I can't talk today, and make it difficult for Spain. But at the end of the day, you are still facing the world champions, one of the best women's football sides we've ever seen. So it's a hell of a task to try and beat this team.
Yeah, but the last time Germany-Spain played each other in a game that mattered, Germany won. So I think they'll feel good about it going into that. It will be... I do think it's going to be a tough ask for a team who haven't looked very impressive. I think Germany maybe... I don't want to do them down because it was such like an incredible performance, like one of the most amazing things I've ever seen. But I'm like, in some ways, I feel like it really worked out for them that they were backed into a corner to have to play like that, and have this like sort of crazy rear guard action. Germany obviously are now going to have, you know, further issues. Schokenussken's not going to be available for this game because she picked up a yellow card. So they're going to have to rejig their midfield. Like, this is the issue that they're facing. It's like every game they're playing, because they're picking up these injuries, suspensions, whatever, you know, there's going to be no Hendrik, but Famsa will be back. Like, but everything has to keep moving around, and I think that's something that's really hard to manage. But as I say, they will feel like they have gone toe-to-toe with Spain very, very recently and come out on top. I think Spain have looked better at this Euros than they did at the Olympics. So I don't know how comparable those games feel. I think, again, it's hard to look past Spain as favourites. Also because, I don't know if you get this in international tournaments, but sometimes like when people play their hero card too early.
I mean, that could be England, to be honest.
Yeah, it could be England as well. But I think because England are playing weaker opposition, do they then get to go back to being England? Germany, I think, would always be underdogs against Spain because of Spain's quality. And they've already played we did it all, we pushed, we did everything. But, you know, we saw Gio Hoffmann bully France's centre-backs for large portions of the game. Won so many fouls, annoying free kicks, that kind of stuff. And firstly, like Alexandri's not available, Spain are going to have to rejig their centre-back pairing, and we know that centre-back wise they've not looked totally convincing. So I think there's a game plan there for Germany. But yeah, I think I'd still give Spain the edge.
Yeah, you can't underestimate, I say, that the hero card element, but actually just how mentally and physically draining it is having a result like that. Not just the fact that you had to play so many minutes, but everything around it.
On the pitch at St. Jacobs Park, I'm like, girl, I get it, but like, come on, there's more to come. Exactly.
It's that emotional release, and then you have to sort of come down from that. And England players have already spoken about this. You know, no one would have slept at all, really, the night of a result like that, and I'm sure it's the same for the Germany players. So much now will go into, okay, how are we mentally and physically recovering from that? And when it comes to Germany, you've got players who had to come off with injury, you've got players who are suspended, you've got players who have already got injured early in the tournament when it comes to Gwyn. Every single game, and I haven't crunched the numbers, but it does feel like Germany have had to make so many changes game to game, and every single game is almost like this reset. And if you're facing a team like Spain, you want to feel like you've got the best game plan you can possibly have. You've got the best personnel you possibly have. And you know exactly how your system's going to work, and everyone's at a rhythm. And Germany keep having to problem solve. And I think that is going to be a bit of a challenge when you're facing a team that are the queens of patterns and rhythms and individual quality. And I think, actually, Germany's defence looked really organised last night. I mean, there were a couple of moments where they got Knack and Minch got dragged up a little bit and then had to kind of recover and drop and actually, you know, manage with that offside goal to kind of get away with it. But I do wonder whether they can be as disciplined as they were last night, when we've kind of seen them, especially against Sweden, concede some pretty poor goals.
Well, France also, and this is part of the disappointment of France, I think didn't really show a huge amount in terms of like real technical ability in the midfield, which kind of surprised me. Obviously that disallowed goal is an amazing example of what they could have done, but generally it felt like the idea was, we're going to try and get the ball out wide, we're going to try and take on the fullbacks 1v1, we're going to double up on them, and we want to get a ball into the box for Katoto. And maybe that gets cut back for someone on the edge of the area. Spain aren't going to play like that. Spain are going to want to progress the ball through central areas. They want to play those little through balls into the penalty area. It's a totally different challenge in that sense, I think, in terms of defending. And I think that's why France should be disappointed in themselves, because they made it very easy, I think, for Germany just to defend the box. That's not what Spain are going to do. So are Germany up for it? As I say, we've seen Germany play Spain in an important game recently, and they managed to get through it. So maybe they can. Like, I don't think it's beyond them, basically. But I think it will be a much tougher test than what France required of them.
Yeah, so that game is Wednesday, back in everyone's favourite athletic stadium, Zurich. Let's Grund. I think it's going to be my 4th trip there in about 7 days, maybe a bit more. I'm kind of loving it, though. I'm kind of into it. I know people don't like the track, but
I've got to be honest. I kind of think it's camp having the track, but going to Park yesterday. Why is it camp? I don't know. It just feels like different. But going to Senja, everything's camp if I want it to be camp. Going to Senja Park yesterday, I was like, wow, the atmosphere here is so much better.
Yeah, it was a proper football stadium. It was an amazing atmosphere. And we'll be back there for the final, which is exciting. So, yes, here's the podcast plan over the next few days. I feel like I'm doing kind of a teachery speech, but we're going to be...
People got to get in their calendars.
Yeah, mark your calendars now. So, because we've got various HQ situations unravelling and everyone's moving around, we also have not only Becky Taylor-Gill and producer Katie coming into town and switching things up, but we're going to be running around and going to both semi-finals and, of course, the final. So here's what we're going to do, lads. After the England game on Tuesday, we're going to record an instant audio-only reaction pod because, as you guys will know, when we do video, it requires a little bit more time, setup, love and care. And we want to get the England reaction to you as soon as possible. So we're going to be doing instant England reaction after that game on Tuesday night. And then on the Thursday, after Germany-Spain, we will be recording a more combined, proper video debrief of those two semi-finals back in Zurich HQ, aka Vision Apartments, Wolfram-Platz.
Vision Apartments, we're back, baby.
We're so back.
I'm leaving it for 2 days, and I will miss it deeply.
I'll miss it, and we love the Zurich HQ, and then we haven't figured out what we're doing for Basel yet. So give us this time. It's one step at a time when we're on tour for the Euros. Jessy, I'll see you in Geneva tomorrow.
Yeah, I've heard your WAG's gonna pick us out a nice.
Yeah, the WAG is on the hunt for some good restaurants.
Those WAG has arrived.
Yeah, the WAGs are here.
The Euros has really begun.
And yeah, lots of swimming. So I'm sure we'll try and go for a swim tomorrow. And then we'll have MD-1 at the stadium, chatting to Serena Wiegman and a player. So very exciting. But yeah, we'll be back on Tuesday reacting to England, Italy. We'll see you then.